A government pandemic advisor predicts a slight rebound in COVID infections around June. Former Taiwan leader Ma Ying-jeou begins a 12-day visit to the mainland. Hello and happy Monday. Government pandemic advisor Ivan Hung says he expects a slight rebound in COVID infections in the city around June, but he believes the current mixed immune barrier is strong enough to prevent an outbreak. Mimo Sangai reports.
With the government dropping all COVID restrictions and the mask mandate, Hong Kong has officially bid farewell to the pandemic. Even the statistics suggest the city is in a post-pandemic era. Only 37 people tested positive yesterday. Nonetheless, government pandemic advisor Ivan Hung said the city may see a slight rebound in COVID infections in June, adding that the virus strains will likely be the same as the current ones. Hong said since the last COVID outbreak in the city happened between the end of last year and early this year, the next one will possibly occur after 6 months when the vaccine-induced immunity to COVID-19 starts to wane among the elderly. The advisor, however, asked the public not to worry since the virus strains will not be as active as they are during the winter. Moreover, he pointed out that most people have been infected with one of the prevailing virus strains, BA.2 or BA.5, meaning a strong mixed immune barrier has been formed in Hong Kong. Speaking on whether people should get a COVID vaccine regularly, the advisor said the government's scientific committees will meet to discuss the matter. Hong, meanwhile, believes vulnerable groups, such as the elderly, should get the COVID-19 bivalent vaccine every 6 months, while other people can receive the shot annually. Mimo Sangai, TVB News.
Former Taiwan leader Ma Ying-jeou arrived in Shanghai this afternoon for a landmark 12-day trip to the mainland. He will visit his ancestral graves in Hunan province. Accompanying him are 30 university students from Taiwan, a trip aimed at improving cross-strait relations. Sharon Tang has more.
Ma Ying-jeou's flight touched down at Shanghai Pudong Airport at around 4:30 p.m. today. According to state media Xinhua News Agency, Ma was greeted by officers from the Taiwan Work Office of the CPC Central Committee as well as representatives from Shanghai. He then boarded a coach without speaking to the press. Taiwan's TVB reported the coach took Ma from the airport through a VIP passageway to Hongqiao Station, where he transited to Nanjing City in Jiangsu Province via the high-speed rail. Ma will visit his ancestral graves during the trip. 30 Taiwan University students accompanying Ma on the trip will engage in exchange activities with mainland students. Speaking to the press before he took off in Taipei, the former leader of the island said he had high hopes for this trip. When I was 37, he said, I was dealing with cross-strait affairs in the government. I will be turning 73 this year. I've waited for 36 years to visit the mainland, and I know it's a long wait, but I'm so happy that I can do this. Ma said as students from both sides will have exchanges, he hopes this will improve the cross-strait atmosphere through the passion and interaction of young people, so peace can come sooner to us. Just outside the airport, supporters of Ma held banners that read, "We are family," and wished for a successful trip for him. Angry protesters, many of them forcibly escorted out of the airport, criticized Ma for kowtowing to mainland authorities. Ma will be visiting a lot of places, according to his reported itinerary, which includes Sun Yat-sen's former residence in Nanjing. He will then pay respects to his ancestors in Hunan and head to Changsha, Chongqing and Shanghai before returning home on April the 7th. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Addressing the China Development Forum 2023 in Beijing, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund said China is set to account for around 1/3 of global growth in 2023 with its economic rebound. This year's China Development Forum is centered on opportunities in the Chinese market, the stabilization of global industrial chains, and green transition. More than 100 overseas delegates are participating in the forum. During her speech, IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva referred to the economic recovery in China as green shoots in the global economy, which has been hard hit by the pandemic, geoeconomic fragmentation, and financial stability risks. She laid out her views on how a strong Chinese economy could benefit other economies in Asia and the rest of the world.
Our analysis shows that the 1 percentage point increase in GDP growth in China leads to 0.3 percentage point increase in growth in other Asian economies. With such a solid recovery, China now builds on a positive momentum through comprehensive policies, stay on a growth path toward convergence with advanced economies.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said in an interview on state TV that Moscow and Beijing were not creating any new military alliance. President Xi Jinping spent 3 days in Russia last week during a state visit in which he had talks with Putin and vowed to enhance strategic partnerships. This included more joint military drills. Putin said despite military and technical cooperation, the two countries will be fully transparent and have nothing to hide. He also said he and Xi discussed everything casually. China has refused to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Putin said it is the West and NATO countries that are trying to form more global alliances against Russia. North Korea this morning test-fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles just hours after a nuclear-powered U.S. aircraft carrier started military drills with South Korea warships. South Korean officials say the missiles were fired from North Hwanghae province and flew about 370 kilometers before landing at sea off the country's east coast. The launches came as the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Nimitz and ships from its battle group were scheduled to dock at a South Korean naval base in Busan. It was North Korea's 7th missile test this month amid heightening tensions in the region and intensified U.S.-South Korea military exercises. The missiles landed outside of Japan's exclusive economic zone. Tokyo has lodged a strong protest with Pyongyang, saying the test launches threaten the safety and peace of Japan. Still ahead, a political crisis in Israel. And Macau authorities to launch another round of cross-border transport discounts. Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's religious nationalist coalition government survived a no-confidence motion filed by the opposition in protest at its judicial overhaul plan today. This comes as speculation mounts over whether Netanyahu would announce a halt to the overhaul and as dramatic demonstrations against the measure continue. Daniel Rell tells us more.
Tens of thousands of people took to the streets on Sunday night to voice their outrage following Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's announcement that he had dismissed Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Gallant had been the first senior member of the ruling Likud party to speak out against the overhaul plans, saying deep divisions were threatening to weaken the military. Departing flights out of the country's main international airport were grounded in protest, affecting thousands of travelers. Other sectors were also falling in line with local governments, which manage preschools and other essential services, as well as a main doctors' union announcing they would walk out. Israel's ceremonial president Isaac Herzog had also urged Netanyahu to immediately halt the overhaul, calling on the government to put aside political considerations for the sake of the nation. The overhaul bid, driven by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his allies in Israel's most right-wing government ever, has plunged the nation into one of its worst domestic crises. Netanyahu's government had pledged to forge ahead with a parliamentary vote this week on a centrepiece of the overhaul, a law that would give the governing coalition the final say over all judicial appointments. The government has also been seeking to pass laws that would grant the Israeli parliament the authority to overturn Supreme Court decisions and to limit judicial review of laws. Netanyahu and his allies argued their plan would restore a balance between the judicial and executive branches and rein in what they see as an interventionist court with liberal sympathies. Critics say the laws would remove Israel's system of checks and balances and concentrate power in the hands of the governing coalition. They also say that Netanyahu has a conflict of interest because of his ongoing corruption trial. Daniel Rowell, TVB News.
Germany was at a standstill Monday as workers at airports, bus and train stations across the country went on strike, disrupting millions of commuters. Two of the country's largest airports, Munich and Frankfurt, suspended flights while long-distance rail services were canceled by German rail operator Deutsche Bahn. A top union boss justified the strikes as a matter of survival. The 24-hour work stoppage was called by the Verdi trade union and Railway and Transport Union EVG to press for inflation-busting wage increases for their members. It's the latest in months of industrial action that has hit major European economies as higher food and energy prices dent living standards. Back in Hong Kong, the government is addressing the problem of a lack of tenants for transitional housing projects in the new territories. It proposes adjusting the tenancy structure to allow for more residents who have waited under 3 years for public housing. Currently, the average residential rate of such housing projects in the new territory stands at 70%. Transitional housing residency rates in over half of all urban areas have reached 100%. Authorities also announced that a new central application for transitional housing will be available by the second quarter of this year. Its digital version will be ready by the fourth quarter to increase efficiency for housing applicants. Macau authorities plan to launch cross-border transport discounts from mid-April to the end of June. Not only does the discount apply to Hong Kong tourists, but it also extends to overseas visitors who arrive in Macau via Hong Kong. In January, the Macau government announced the buy an outbound ticket and get a return ticket promotion scheme for Hong Kong tourists. The promotion was scheduled to end in March, but to further increase the number of visitors, authorities decided to extend the scheme to June. This time, all overseas visitors are targeted. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Pearl Magazine is up shortly. See you then. Bye for now.